Any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. And can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So, just happened. Hold on. Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valerie Swenson, and I am an academic advisor in the School of Engineering First Year Advising Hub. We are joined today by Kristen Kettering from the Center for Career and Professional Development, and today we will be talking to you about our program, the Second Semester Jumpstart. So basically, with this program, there are a couple different things we want to discuss a bit, but we'll overview how to boost your GPA coming this spring semester, some tangible things that you can do in order to set yourself up for success, both this semester and in future semesters as well. So, a bit of an overview of what we will be talking about today. It looks like we have a couple of students joining us now. So again, I'm Valerie Swenson, joined by Kristen Kettering from the Center for Career and Professional Development. So first, what we'll be talking about is some GPA and career information, and Kristen will overview that for us. Next, I'm going to get into some info about how GPA works. We also have some advising tips based upon, our experience here within the hub and working with students. I want to talk a bit about campus resources that are available to support you. Should you have questions or need anything, there are plenty of resources throughout campus. We'll briefly overview those. Also, I want to show you some kind of tips and tricks when it comes to organization and some examples of what students who have really made organization a priority, staying on top of their studies, have actually shared with us too. So to start here, this information, a 3.87 GPA is the average high school GPA, or was, for accepted students that started in fall 2018. When we talk about GPA in high school, typically you have the A, B, C, D, letter grades and such, but numerically this is what it encompass for students who were accepted at RPI beginning in fall 2018, and this doesn't typically tend to deviate. However, what we'll talk about today is GPA at RPI, and first what we'll talk about is a bit on how to kind of outline your GPA in your resume, but also the typical GPA for students here. So this next part will be Kristen, and then whenever you want me to advance the slide, let me know, Kristen.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Valerie. So yeah, I'm Kristen from the CCPD. I'm one of the career counselors and I work with students in the School of Engineering. So yeah, 2.7 is actually the GPA that we recommend students put on their resume. So if you have a 2.7 GPA or higher, we recommend that you showcase that on your resume in the education section. A lot of times when we meet with students, they are surprised by that. They're surprised to hear that a 2.7 is still a very solid GPA here at RPI. And in the next slide, I'll get a little bit more in detail about that. So Valerie, you can go ahead and advance on there. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about GPA and employers and ways to sort of highlight other things if maybe your GPA is a little bit lower. But so again, we recommend that if you have a 2.7 or above, that you include it on your resume. The reason why is that most internships and entry level, not all entry level full-time jobs, but many entry level full-time jobs are looking at students' GPA from their bachelor's degrees. And typically they require a 3.0 GPA. So a 2.7 is it's really just under that. So that's why we recommend that. Many employers will tell us that they overlook a GPA requirement. So if their company, unless it's like really set in stone, some companies it is, but unless it's really set in stone, companies will overlook that 3.0 or 3.2 GPA requirement because they might see other things on your resume that they like. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about that. But things that you need to know is that, anything really 2.5 and above at RPI is solid, and it's a lot different than a 2.7 at, like, say, a typical liberal arts college. Um, Employers know how rigorous and difficult the RPI curriculum is, and they're very familiar with it, and they, keep that in mind. There are other things that you can showcase on your resume that really helps overcome maybe that lower than you'd like or less than desired GPA that you might have, that you feel a little maybe not so great about. So on the next slide, I'll get into what these other things are that you can include on your resume. All right. So the other skills and strengths that you can emphasize on your resume, again, to help employers overlook that GPA requirement, is definitely have a skills section on your resume. Many employers, we actually just met with a company a couple months ago, and they said we don't even care. They're a software company. We don't even care what major the student is. We don't care if they're a psychological sciences student. If they have certain coding on their resume and they can do it when we meet and interview them, we'll still consider to hire them. They weren't even looking at GPA or anything like that. So skill section is really important on a resume. You really want to have subcategories. So coding, any coding languages that you know, software programs that you're familiar with, laboratory skills. That's important for, chemical engineering and biomedical engineering and things like that. In specific engineering skills, so like machining skills, those you mechanical engineer majors out there, really get specific about those machining skills, and also any special certifications or languages, other languages that you speak. Very important. Another thing to keep in mind that you want on your resume is a relevant courses section. A lot of employers will, uh, they look at, but this is mostly for internships, but they look at what courses have you taken towards your major, and they use that to determine whether or not they're going to interview you or not. That's one of the big things they use. So especially if you're advanced in credits, make sure that you have that down, that you're, you know, um, what courses that you've taken so far that could help you get an interview. um, Past experiences, so past internships or past research experience, any experience where you had a supervisor basically and that you've were hired there, that shows that you've been successful in the past somewhere, so you'll more likely be successful there as well. You have some experience. It shows that you're professional and that you're hardworking and capable and things like that, so definitely have those things on your resume. um, Although this is not a resume thing, it's still something I wanted to put down here on this slide. So many employers will say, if they meet you and they like you, they will overlook, if they think you're a good fit and they just like you and they can tell how genuine you are and that you're hardworking and that you want to learn and that you like their company, they'll still hire you. They're going to still hire you regardless of what your GPA is. So that's really important. So if you meet employers at the career fair or at other career, events or anything like that, it's a really good way to make a good impression. And again, they'll overlook certain things and really pull out your strengths and skills that you do have. Leadership positions. So if you have any leadership positions, definitely have those on your resume, regardless of what your GPA is. If you have manager skills, project management skills, if you can lead, coordinate, tutor, mentor, anything like that, those are highly sought after skills that, uh, whether it's engineering or another type of industry, they're highly sought after skills. So it's really important to have that on your resume. And we can go to the next slide. Thanks. All right, so it's one of the ways that you can explain a lower GPA, of course, is an in-person meeting that I mentioned previously. So making a really good impression with an employer or someone in the, a recruiter or something like that is really important. Um, so you can certainly utilize any thing that RPI offers to you, career fairs, things like that, information sessions to do that. When you're meeting with an employer or even during an interview, be honest. Say, I had a really rough freshman year. I had a rough first semester, and it just threw me off. And mention if you had some health issues, or you had some family problems, or something like that. But then explain how you have you know put in effort to try to increase and make things better and improve everything. And also emphasize your other positive traits and skills. Two very tangible ways besides talking with employers that you can explain a lower GPA. One is always do a cover letter when you're applying to an internship or a full-time position. Have a cover letter with your resume and have a couple sentences in that cover letter regarding your academic experience, and anything that you want to explain in that, you can do so in that cover letter, and we can help you with that at the CCPD. If you're applying to graduate school, same thing. You will have to write a personal statement, which is like a graduate school essay. That's a perfect opportunity to take a small paragraph of that or a few sentences within that and explain, a lower GPA or a GPA that is not as high as you would like it to be. Um, the other thing that I didn't mention on the resume slide, that I forgot to mention actually, is that you can do two GPAs on your resume. You could do a cumulative GPA and you can do a major GPA. And I think Valerie will get into that a little bit more later in the slides, but you can have two GPAs to show that maybe your overall GPA wasn't so great, but look at your engineering GPA. Really important to showcase that if there's a big difference. Okay, and then we can go on to the next slide. So I was talking about, face-to-face meetings with employers and recruiters are very important. So anytime that you have an opportunity to do something like that, take it on. This is a great opportunity, the upcoming career fair. So our office, the CCPD, has a big career fair coming up February 9th. Lots of engineering employers, lots and lots of them. Um, the timing of that is 11 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's all virtual through Handshake. You register. The registration opened yesterday, the 19th. You just go log into Handshake, click on events. You'll see the posting for the career fair. You just click on that, and then you just want to fill that out, register for it, and start looking at the sessions and registering for those. The types of sessions that are offered are one-on-one sessions, so 10 minutes with an employer in that company of choice that you might have, and group sessions. Those are typically 30 minutes long. You meet with an employer. There are other students there as well, but you hear all about the company. You can ask some great questions. It's just a good opportunity to be involved in. Check out Handshake events as well. Next week, our office is holding a lot of career fair prep workshops, so definitely check out and see if you can come to one of those and RSVP, because we'll give you all sorts of strategies and tips to get through that. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen.
You're welcome.
All right, so for this next portion of the presentation, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking a bit about GPAs. So basically the way that your GPA works, it's a calculation. So in order to calculate your GPA, you do quality points over credit hours. So that's the simple equation here. I'll get into kind of a simulation about how that works and how you can actually calculate your GPA, be it for this semester or for future semesters and things like that later in the presentation. So we talked a bit about grades earlier as well. So in high school, you may have been used to letter grades. Here, the letter grades kind of calculate out to this here too. So when you see an A, that's a 4.0, A minus, and you see it goes down from here. So just keeping that in mind, because GPA and grades do work a bit differently here and in college than in high school. When we're doing these calculations, when we're taking a look into um, these different things, quality points, credit hours, this is kind of the scale that we go off of. So also with GPA, courses with more credits will carry more weight. So basically, courses with more credits, therefore also factor into your GPA with more weight. As many of you are starting the start of your second semester here, you can see that, early on, there are less grades that get factored into your GPA. Therefore, every grade kind of hits like a truck, is the way we put it. However, as time goes on, as the number of credits that you take increase, each class is going to matter a little less and less in that calculation for your GPA. So even if you're not thrilled with the GPA you got your first semester, keep in mind that you'll be taking more courses. More courses will be factored into that GPA. We'll also talk about some other ways that you can either raise grades or your GPA throughout your time here, but just kind of keeping in mind that, early on there's less that gets factored in. However, later on, the classes that you take in the future will help to raise your GPA. So what I will do in a second here is do a simulation for how to use a GPA calculator. So there's one within DegreeWorks, but then there's tons throughout the internet that you're able to use as well. So prior to DegreeWorks kind of coming online, I used to use one of these GPA calculators that are also online to help students see, where they're starting from, what they need to do in order to achieve the GPA that they want. So what I will do next is kind of do a simulation about a GPA calculator so you can see. All right. So for this example, I'm going to preface this and say that the example I'm going to be using is actually a student who has since graduated from RPI, and he was in the FIT program. His first semester at RPI wasn't necessarily ideal grades wise, and he really turned it around. But what I wanted to do in using this example specifically is show you a live example of GPA calculation, but also the way in which students have in the past been able to bring their GPA up. So let's see if I can get both of these things going at once. Right. Let's see here. So it's a bit small on the screen. All right, so talking about the student's first semester. He, at the end of his first semester, had a GPA that was actually a 2.08. Here on this slide, it shows a 2.33 because he actually ended up retaking one of these courses. One thing that's nice about RPI is that if you retake a course, your old grade gets replaced by your new grade in factoring your GPA together. So when we talk about his first semester here, he was actually a chemical engineer to begin. Didn't necessarily get grades that were ideal in his eyes for that first semester. So his GPA was calculated out as such. And here's our GPA calculator that, again, I like using this. I think it's really simple and it's something that you can access, at any time, really. So for instance, with Chem for Advanced Lab, he had a C and then he received 4 credits for that. Next, he took IEA. He got a C plus, also had 4 credits. His first semester here, he actually took Calculus 1. He transferred that in, but for Calculus 2, he ended up getting a D plus. And then last but not least, he took psychology and he got a B minus. So we're going to factor all of this in here. So with our GPA calculator, you're able to put the grade that you got and then also the number of credits that are associated. He had a 2.808 GPA for his first semester here. So in working with the student as well, something that he was required to do was meet with me as his advisor. We kind of put together a plan for his next coming semesters, what might make sense for him to retake in terms of classes, what might, make sense for him to just continue to take classes and not actually retake. Because again, the more you take, the more that gets factored into your GPA and the less that those initial grades that might not be ideal kind of hit. So this is his first semester. He's at a 2.08 GPA. Eventually, he ended up retaking Calc 2. So that gets factored in later, but you can see that that brings him up to his first semester GPA here as it appears. But he hasn't retaken it yet. So then we're going to add a semester, right? So he took material science for engineers. He got a B plus on that, which was worth 4 credits. He took modeling and analysis of uncertainty. which is worth 3 credits. Then he retook Calculus 2, ended up getting an A on that. 4 credits. Next, he took material science for engineers because this was his first semester kind of going at a Math Sci course. So he ended up changing his major eventually. But what he was able to do here was kind of ensure that he was testing out the major that he wanted to do while also taking a class that wasn't necessarily going to hit his GPA necessarily. So for material science, we're not going to factor that in because technically that 1 credit didn't get factored in. He ended up taking, I'm missing a part here. Give me one moment. So this was actually his 3rd semester listed here, but you can see that he ended up taking more classes that get kind of factored into his GPA here. He had 2 credits for that. And then last but not least, he had a B plus in this class. He had 4 credits. So his GPA ended up going up and up, right? So you can see here that after the 2nd semester, his GPA ended up being a, let me retook this here. So 3.09 overall. So there's a bit of data missing in here. However, you can see with the calculation that when he is taking more classes, adding more and more in, his initial GPA the calculus score got replaced by the new calculus score, and then the GPA went up and up. So that's just a brief, I guess, presentation of how to use a GPA calculator. Overall, this was actually his 3rd semester here. So he ended up in 3 semesters going from what you saw was a 2.08 GPA, and then he ended up over that fall semester, the spring semester, it went up and up. This right here was the end of his fall sophomore year, and he ended up having a 3.62 semester GPA, but at the end of the day, he ended up having a 3.606 GPA at the end of that 3rd semester. So within 3 semesters, the student was able to bring his GPA up. I will say with the student too, there's a couple of things that really aren't factored in here. He ended up changing his major. He was in the FIT program. He learned from someone within the material science department what individuals within that major do. He decided to change his major. When he found the major he really liked, he was more passionate about the courses and did better and better. So, there's a lot that isn't said necessarily with numbers, but to have gone from that 2.08 initially that you saw to the over 3 GPA for his 3rd semester here, that's pretty impressive. And the student ended up going to graduate from RPI. He had an internship during the Arch, and then he actually had a full-time job offer before he graduated. He's currently working at a nanofab company locally. So, in working with him, when we, discussed how he was doing, kind of the start to the end, he said to me once that, can you believe that this is how things turned out? And absolutely, I knew he had it in him. But at the end of the day, it came to a couple different things, right? So he started out with some grades that were less than ideal for him. He retook 1 class that brought the GPA up. But more importantly, throughout this time and using some of the resources that are available to him on campus, what he was able to do was raise that GPA, get more and more classes where he was getting, A's and B's, and then eventually ended up with well over a 3 GPA for graduation and doing well in the workforce. So again, the GPA calculator is something that you can use on your own. I use this in meetings with students to, set goals, right? So students will say, hey, I really do want to be above a 3.0 GPA by the end of my sophomore year, for instance. So what we'll do there is we'll talk about, what does it look like in terms of should you be retaking courses? Should you continue on and just have more and more courses get factored in? Kind of taking a goal and then reverse engineering is the way that I put it, so to speak. So what is your goal, and then how can we help you get to that goal? And then being able to break that down bit by bit, both in terms of what's aspirational and then also what is possible. So I'll have students say, hey, so I think that I could get a B in this class this semester. So we'll factor in a B when we calculate the GPA. So it is a really helpful tool. Again, DegreeWorks has one built right in as well. But if you wanted to do something even, after this event here, what you can do is just kind of calculate out, see where you're at right now. If you are making the decision right now, whether you retake a course, the ad deadline is tomorrow. So if you are going to want to make any changes to your schedule, you want to make sure to do so before tomorrow night. So you can consider, hey, does it make sense for me to retake a course to help the GPA? Does it make sense for me to move forward, both academically in terms of grades? And what do I have to do this semester, perhaps the following semester, in order to get to where I want to be? And as Kristen mentioned, GPA isn't everything. It's but one of the things that employers consider. So, there's a lot of other things that you can do here. You think about college as a 4-year experience. There will be a lot of other things you do, right? It's academics, it's the things that you're involved in, it's the co-ops, the internships, the research you pursue, it's those outside activities. And at the end of the day, it's this compilation of many different things that aren't just GPA. But specifically academics, it's good to, set those goals, see where you should be. And next we'll kind of talk about some more tips for success to help you get there. So a couple of tips for success that we have. Number one is actually meeting with your advisor. So again, I'm calling from the School of Engineering Advising Hub. We are here specifically to meet with first year students. So you will be meeting with us. You're actually required to meet with us in order to be able to register for classes for the fall. So that's one meeting. However, I'll say that I meet with most students more than just one time throughout the semester. And in terms of tips for success, really in meeting with students, we meet with hundreds of students every single year. So we've kind of seen it all. What we're able to do is provide advice and kind of give perspectives on classes, what you should be taking, what you should be retaking, which classes go well together, which classes are less than ideal to take together. So again, we'll work with you throughout your first year here, but especially if you're kind of looking for some advice to get you jump started with this semester, please feel free to meet with us. Another important thing is knowing the academic deadlines that are very vital. So the drop deadline for courses, I mentioned that the add deadline is tomorrow, January 21st, but the drop deadline for courses is March 4th. So in the case that you are taking a class that you find that you want to drop, as long as you drop that class by the drop deadline, the class will no longer be in your transcript. It doesn't get factored into your GPA. So as long as you drop it by the drop deadline, which is March 4th, no one is any the wiser that you even took that course. So just having that deadline in mind is important. Not necessarily saying that you should or have to drop courses, but if you find that you've taken on too much, if that you maybe have added additional courses this semester and you figure, I should have just stayed where I was last semester, just know that important deadline, which is March 4th, and that'll be right before the spring break, which is another way to remember it. So another thing for tips for success is using some of the resources that are available to you. One of the first things are office hours. So every faculty member on campus, if they're teaching, has office hours. These office hours are listed within their syllabus, and that's a time for you to be able to meet with faculty. So we have had many faculty say to us, I really wish that more students would visit during office hours. Definitely use that time to your advantage because, again, that's uninterrupted time kind of away from the class, but also specifically for you and your classmates to be able to reach out to a faculty member. So something about our faculty, they're involved in so many different things, right? They teach, they advise upperclassmen, they do research, but at the end of the day, they're here to help students and they're here to teach students. So they really are here as resources to you. And again, many faculty say that they wish more students would reach out. They wish more students would take advantage of those office hours where they're otherwise, sitting there idle waiting for students. So the next thing that you can take advantage of, we have from the Advising and Learning Assistance Center, or ALAC, there are tutoring services. So for basically any course you can think of for your first year, there are tutors that are also students, much like yourselves, who have gone through these classes. They're selected specifically because they're knowledgeable, they've done well in them, and they're here to help students with drop-in hours. So there are drop-in hours several days a week, several times a week. The ALAC website lists these, and I have had students in the past really take advantage of the tutoring services for some, kind of one-on-one help. Another thing too is academic coaching. So ALAC also has academic coaching where you're able to meet with a professional to talk about things like time management, test taking skills and things like that. So in addition to that, tutoring services, those are really drop-in hours for students taking courses. If you do want one-on-one tutoring, perhaps you always want to work consistently with someone one-on-one, you can speak with someone at the Advising and Learning Assistance Center, and they could be able to make that connection. Typically, there's a cost associated with that, but tutoring services as a group, again, a service offered to students, specifically for students, by students, and there's no cost associated. Um, you know, Another thing too is considering the pass no credit deadline. So pass no credit, what that does is that allows you to take courses such as electives or humanities electives. And in taking those courses, the two grades that you can get are either a pass, which is a P, or a no credit, which is an NC. A pass is a D or anything above. So what's nice with pass no credit courses, and this was something that the student whose example I gave previously, he changed his major halfway through his freshman year. So one of the classes that was actually super challenging for him was no longer needed for his new major. So he was able to take that class, which at that point was cell biology, and make it a pass no credit course. He passed the course, so he got credit for it. However, it didn't hit his GPA. So it gave him a little bit of reassurance that, hey, this class that I'm taking, it's going to be helpful for me. I don't want to drop it. I've gone this far into the class. However, it's not going to hurt my GPA. It's not going to factor in as a letter grade. So pass no credit can be used for courses on a somewhat limited basis. Those are electives, humanities courses, and also non-pathway courses. But it really can be strategic, and you can pass no credit a certain number of courses while you're here. So if you have questions on the pass no credit deadline, I definitely recommend reaching your advisor here in the hub. You can't pass no credit just anything. If a class is specifically named by major, you cannot pass no credit it. But again, for some of those humanities courses, electives, perhaps you took a Haas course and you're like, "Ooh, I'm not really enjoying this, but I want to stick within it. I don't see myself taking a pathway or continuing on this path with this course." Pass no credit is a strategic thing that you can do. So whereas the drop deadline is March 4th, the pass no credit deadline is April 4th. So hopefully that should be another easy date to remember. So again, talking about office hours and such. Another thing that is available is the Disability Services for Students office. So if you had an IEP or accommodations in high school, you may know that you're able to get accommodations here as well. So if you would like to speak to someone about that, or if you have questions, dss@rpi.edu is who you'll want to contact. So now that we've talked a bit about different academic resources, be it faculty, office hours, ALAC, your advisor, some of the deadlines in terms of academics, I wanted to use this last portion to talk about some tips to get organized. So in hearing from students, even today, right before this meeting, in hearing from students who didn't necessarily have what they would consider an ideal first semester, what they've noticed is, or they've expressed at least, is, hey, so I didn't have a great semester, and a lot of it was time management. A lot of it is organization. College is very different from high school. So some of these tips that will help you get organized may help you within the future and just kind of keeping on track and on top of things right away. So if you get some of these habits started earlier, it should be easier as time goes on. In speaking with students who haven't necessarily had the first ideal semester, including the student I spoke about earlier, some other students that haven't had great first semesters, really making a game plan at the beginning of the semester helps them to stay organized, stay on top of their work, and eventually do far better their second semester and beyond. So the first thing and a tip to get organized would be making a plan, right? We'll talk a bit about what a game strategy could look like for you, but you know, considering if you didn't have ideal grades your first semester, your plan might be like, okay, so I want to make sure that I get, this letter grade in each of these courses. I want to make sure that if I retake this course, I get this letter grade. Um, really having a plan, getting organized at the start helps set you up for the future. The next thing would be mapping out your time. I'm going to show you a couple of examples for this as well. So we've had students express to us in the past that something that worked is mapping out their time and kind of thinking about their time, not only, during classes, but outside of classes, their time in the scheme of a week, and thinking to themselves, okay, so this is the amount of time that I spend in class. This is the amount of time I should study. Then taking that and actually designating time throughout their day for those things, really mapping it out. I've had students do that to the hour at times, so I'll show you some examples of that. And then in terms of that, also looking ahead for the semester, and I'll show you another example of this too. What's really nice is that with the different course syllabi you have, it's kind of a strategy throughout the entire semester that you can continue to look at. You know when things will be due, you know when your tests will be, so looking ahead now, making a plan, and kind of mapping things out will help you. So this is one thing that I've had students do in the past that they found helpful. So when I mentioned mapping out their time, this is an example for really mapping out your time to every single half hour. So I've had students put in here things, for instance, okay, so I wake up at, 8 on Monday, so I'm gonna block out 7:30 for sleep. Then I have class at this time, I have lunch at this time. So if you put the important times, then what you can do is fill in what you'll do the rest of your time. Another thing that I've had students do in the past, this is actually something that one of my current students shared with me last week. So, um, you map out your time. This is really mapping out your semester. So this student actually found this strategy on TikTok, which I found interesting. And then he took this and he really made it his own. So what he did was he went through all of the different classes that he's taking, he color coded them, and then by date, he designated what was due when. This is very simple. He used Excel to create this. So kind of creating a table, designating out what's due when, and it's a really nice map for the first part of the semester. So as we finish the end of the week here, you can see that he's had several different things that are due for many different classes and then having this throughout his time. So at the end of the day, this, it was an Excel sheet. He created a PDF. This document ended up being several pages long, but having it sorted out like this and having it, very visible, very understandable, seeing upfront what's due when is something that he's hoping will help him keep on track. So a couple more ideas that that could help in terms of helping you keep organized, really, and kind of find what works for you in terms of organization, time management. So I give some of these ideas. I'm actually a student myself. I'm a doctoral student, and I say all these different things, but then I find that I have to kind of keep up with organization, time management, minimizing distractions. So, for instance, some of the things that I'll do for myself is I find that if I have my phone with me, I get distracted. So I will leave my phone charging in another room, or maybe I'll put it, on airplane mode kind of thing. So again, I'm not distracted during that time that I really should be focused. I will also put white noise on to block out noise too. So typically, if I'm not in a space where things are quiet, it can be hard for me to focus too. So putting headphones on, putting white noise on really helps me keep on track as well. So in the past, I've had students, in terms of minimizing distractions, um, reserve a room in the library, right? So I've had students say, I cannot do work, from my room. I really need to be somewhere else to do work. So, be it during office hours, be it during tutoring hours, finding a quiet place to go to study or creating your own quiet place to go and study can be helpful. And then also stress management too. So I think that this is something that is important to touch upon. Gosh, for the beginning of the semester can be stressful, especially, throughout the semester, you've got midterms, you've got finals. So um, stress management and making sure that you are um, finding ways to make yourself feel less stressed, doing things that you enjoy throughout the day, just blocking a bit of time that isn't necessarily all school all the time is helpful. So keeping in mind that it might not necessarily be organization in terms of spreadsheets or, time management solely in terms of blocking out your time, minimizing distractions, it really, making sure that you're doing things like eating healthy and getting good night's sleep and, taking care of things taking care of yourself in terms of stress management. Um, Also ways to keep on track and keep on top of things academically. This last one here too, this last idea to ask for help, I cannot stress this enough. There are so many resources that are available to you throughout campus. Um, and, at times, RPI, in my experience, it can feel like, everyone seems like they're doing great. And they're at the end of the day, everyone's kind of in the same boat going through different struggles academically. And um, there's absolutely so many ways that I can encourage you to reach out, ask for help. If you don't know where to start, for instance, say that you want some guidance in terms of time management, keeping organized, classes, you can reach out to us as advisors first. But truly throughout campus and every single aspect of your life here on campus, there are different resources and people whose job it is to help you, faculty, staff, etc. So, um, oftentimes students will reach out for help. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late in the semester. There's more that we can do in terms of advising and kind of talking about moves that you can make in terms of classes, curriculum earlier rather than later. But really, again, we are here as resources to you. So please, if you find yourself in a pinch, if you find yourself, stressed, needing help in terms of organization, academics, cannot stress enough to ask out for help. So at this point, what I wanted to do is see if anyone has any questions. Um, Kind of a brief, we gave a brief overview about GPA. We gave an overview about, what it looks like in terms of job search career. Maybe even if you're not there at this point, it's something to keep in mind for the future. And then, some tools in terms of calculating your goals, seeing where things, where you are academically, seeing where you want to be in the future, but then also some ideas about different resources and places you can reach out to here on campus. So with that in mind, does anyone have any questions? You can either choose to unmute yourself or open up the chat, whatever works.
I just wanted to ask again how to sign up for ALAC. I forgot what you said.
Oh, sure. So let me bring up another page real quick. I should show you some websites. Let's see here. So, at ALAC, the Advising and Learning Assistance Center, there are very many different things that they offer. So in terms of tutoring services, if you're interested in doing that, the drop-in tutoring page should be posted very soon, so you'll be able to see this here. And I will throw this link into the chat just so everyone has it. But soon you'll be able to see the specific hours for drop-in tutoring, which again takes place many times throughout the week. But this page here gives you the option to either look at that, but then also different people that you can reach out to at ALAC if you're looking for anything specific.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Again, I want to put into the chat this GPA calculator to be able to use this. And there are many different ways that you can calculate and such, but this is a great starting point is to see, what you need to get and where. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, so we will, I guess, end this program for tonight. Thank you all again so much for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We are here to help, and I hope you have a great start to your semester here.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.